Get ready for your daily dose of marketing strategies and tactics from entrepreneurs with the guile and experience to help you find success in any marketing capacity. You're listening to Marketing School with your instructors, Neil Patel and Eric Sue.
Welcome to another episode of Marketing School. I'm Eric Sue.
And I'm Neil Patel.
And today we're going to talk about how we got our podcast to 1 million downloads in 4 months. So for us, we're super grateful for this to be able to, in such a short period of time, get to a 7-figure download number. So we're going to talk about how we got here, relatively quickly. And the thing I want to emphasize first, I've been talking about this a couple of times, is that you can't expect to see kind of what we saw. It did take a lot of time, because without me doing the first podcast and going through the motions and figuring out what doesn't work and powering through things, it'd be difficult to figure out this entire process. So the first 3 years or so for Growth Everywhere was really tough. After the first year, I really wanted to give up, where I was only getting 9 downloads a day. Then it went up to year 2, it went up to 54 a day. And then, right now I think we're on track to hit about 80-ish, 88,000 downloads in a month. But that took a very long time, right? We're talking 3.5 years. And this was with no audience, before that. And I made a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of things that I would have, done differently if I could do it again, today. So the first thing I'm going to say is you have to be willing to put in the time. You have to be very consistent when you're going about your podcast. Ideally, you're launching 5 at the same time so your audience can know to expect what kind of cadence that you have moving forward. Because if you're unpredictable, you launch one episode and then you do the next one 3 weeks later, and the next one after that is 2 months later, well, you're not going to be able to hold the audience. Whether it's doing a weekly podcast or doing a daily podcast like what we're doing right now, you have to be consistent.
The biggest thing that I ended up learning through this whole process is the people who produce the most amount of episodes, it doesn't matter if they're shit or they're good, the people who produce the most amount of episodes get the most amount of listens. Reason being is, think of it like Google, but just a lot less of a sophisticated algorithm with iTunes. The more audio you have out there and the more words you have in your descriptions, the more keywords and phrases people are going to find you for on iTunes, and the more listens you end up getting. So it's not about producing really long episodes that are hour long. Like, if you want to do that, that's great. The quality of your podcast may even be better. But I found that when you do shorter episodes, it's quicker to grow your view count. When we started Marketing School, the purpose was to help people learn marketing in less than 10 minutes a day, right? We didn't do this on purpose. So we're like, yeah, we don't want to provide value and do a 40-minute podcast. It was more so people are busy. They don't have the time. How can we just give them actionable tips in less than 10 minutes? And that's it. And then every day we can give them more and more actionable tips. We found that producing quantity in podcasts and having them shorter, like this was just not a glitch, but more like unexpected result. And the unexpected result was, we did this and we're actually getting more views by doing this compared to just doing 1 or 2 episodes a week that would be an hour each. And if you look at the time perspective, doing 1 or 2 episodes each that are at least an hour long would be more minutes of podcast or more minutes of audio. But doing shorter episodes and more of them gets you way more listens and downloads.
Yeah, so for me personally, I listen to a lot of podcasts, whether I'm at the gym or I'm walking to work, whatever it is exactly. I need something where a good way to put this would be information in, information out, right? I want to be able to do something actionable. Whenever I listen to something, I need to be able to do something afterwards. This is why I have a problem now where when I watch Hulu or whatever it is exactly, if I don't feel like I'm learning from it, if I'm just watching like a TV episode, let's say I'm watching Flash or something like that, I get uneasy because I don't feel like I have anything to do to contribute to, helping out, right? So when I'm watching something, I feel like I'm just consuming. So ideally, if you're listening to something, you're able to just take in that information, take in that idea, write it down into Evernote or something like that, and then go implement it afterwards, which is what we're trying to do. We've always tried to, be able to give people tactical stuff instead of listening to theory. And oftentimes you think about it, I listen to some of Tim Ferriss's episodes, for example. They're really good, but some of them they go up to 2 to 3 hours or so, which is super long, and I don't have the entire time to digest it. So I'm finding now when I'm listening to stuff, anything that's around 10 to 20 minutes or so is great. The interview podcast I have, even that, it can be pretty long. It's 30 to 40 minutes or so. So keeping things concise and doing it in a unique way where we're doing one every single day and we're always challenging ourselves to come up with, topics that are interesting to people. We know that that we have to keep the content, consistent over time, or else people are going to drop off. So there's that challenge, and having that little unique spin on it gives us the opportunity to stand out, because not a lot of people, especially two people, are going to go out there and then agree to record all the time, especially with Neil traveling all the time. I'm gone. It just becomes really difficult. But if you're willing to, commit to it, again, like I mentioned earlier, if you're consistent with it, you're going to see success over time.
Yeah, and the one thing that's helped propel our view count, and when I look at the stats in Libsyn, every time we do an email blast, we get a huge spike, and week over week, we continue to have more and more growth, because you're building up a bigger and bigger base when you continue to do email blasts. I'm blessed to have a really huge list, because they collect like 1,000-something new emails per day. If you're not lucky like me, the other tactic that we found to work really well is you go find other people with big lists. You can interview them on your podcast and make it a requirement like, hey, we're going to interview, we're going to create something really awesome. You have to promote it though. Promote on your Facebook page, your Twitter page, and ideally do an email blast about it as well. If they don't do the email blast, it won't grow as well. It may take some convincing and some finagling to get them to do it, but it's well worth it. And that's where you're going to find that a ton of your views are coming from. If you look at podcasts like Art of Charm, I think they're at, 2 million listens a month, Eric? Is that correct?
2 million, and they've been doing it for 10 years.
So when I was writing my book, Tom, who's in charge of the book marketing campaign, he's like, hey, Art of Charm is down to have you on their podcast. They want an email blast, though. I wasn't willing to do it because I make way too much money from my email blast. And they wouldn't let me on the episode unless I did an email blast, which is really smart because they have a ton of listens. And if you can get people to do email blasts for you, you can skyrocket your growth in your subscriber base. So if you don't have a big following, interview other people. Even big name people usually will accept interviews that are podcast based because they'll feel flattered, and they'll promote it as well. So when it goes live, just ask them, hey, can you promote it? I myself don't do too many promotions when other people ask me to come on their podcast. Because like if you look at my Facebook fan page, I spend hundreds and thousands of dollars growing it from ads and fans, etc. Like I'm not just going to promote anything when I got to recuperate my cost, right? So go find other influencers who are willing to promote, because most people aren't like me where they're stingy with their marketing and they're not willing to share other people's stuff as much.
And the other thing is, from a process standpoint, batch it. So what Neil and I are doing right now, we might record 10 episodes in one day, and then we'll pick another day in the week where we'll record another 10. That way we're staying ahead of time, because who knows what might happen, right? Neil might have a crazy, all of a sudden he has to go travel somewhere. Something might happen where he has to focus all of his time on that. So by batching it, it makes our lives a lot easier. By doing 10, ideally we're trying to do 40 per month or so. But if you're doing one per day and it's sporadic, it's going to be hard to kind of keep the momentum up. So batching it like this helps a lot. And I would also say the other thing is, it's not just Neil and I doing this. We actually have a team behind us that helps with the show notes, with the editing as well. So basically what happens after we batch all the episodes, I basically will drop everything into a Dropbox folder, and the team will get to work. There's multiple people working on this. The show notes, that takes time, making sure that we have the right links inside of the show notes, and then also having to edit things where, Neil and I will screw up sometimes too, and it's pretty funny, but again, we have to, block that part out. There's show notes people out there that can help you out, and it's not super expensive. It might cost you a couple $100s a month, but it saves you a lot of time ultimately once you have the process figured out. So I would also say, when I initially started doing podcasting, I did everything on my own. And when I did everything on my own, from the show notes, editing, and all that kind of stuff, it took me about 5 hours per weekend. And this is only for one episode. So think about the time trade-off. Think about what your time is worth. And if it makes sense, go out there, build a team, and then build out the process that works for you. Neil, anything else to close it off with?
No, that's pretty much it from my end.
All right, that's it for today's episode. We will see you tomorrow.
This session of Marketing School has come to a close. Be sure to subscribe for more daily marketing strategies and tactics to help you find the success you've always dreamed of. And don't forget to rate and review so we can continue to bring you the best daily content possible. We'll see you in class tomorrow, right here on Marketing School.